Am I the jerk for upsetting my mother-in-law and yelling at my husband over how I'm tending to my foster daughter? I, a 37-year-old woman, and my husband, a 39-year-old man, have been fostering our 6-month-old foster daughter for almost 3 months now. When she first came to us, her parents had been arrested for drug charges and neglect, and they are now facing a prison sentence. With no other family available to care for her, we took her in. When she arrived at 3.5 months old, she was severely malnourished and neglected both physically and emotionally. I have cared for newborns born addicted to drugs who were more settled than she was. It was suspected that she had been left to cry for hours on end, with no one tending to her. Fast forward to today, she has gained sufficient weight, is starting to show an interest in solid food, and is catching up with her milestones. However, her emotional and social development remains a concern. She rarely smiles, is hard to calm down, and needs to be held and comforted constantly. She is not babbling or cooing like some babies do, and will not sleep on her own, needing to be rocked to sleep. Sometimes, she wakes up 3 or 4 times a night and will not settle on her own. My mother-in-law came over while I was holding the baby in a carrier and doing some house cleaning. The baby was getting cranky, so I took her into the nursery to rock her to sleep for a nap. It took about 45 minutes. When I came out, my mother-in-law said I should just leave her in the crib to cry it out. Otherwise, she would never settle. I told her that was not an option. About 45 minutes later, the baby woke up, so I took her into the living room and sat on the floor to play with her. My mother-in-law suggested I should just get a playpen and let her learn to entertain herself. I again said that she gets upset to the point of being inconsolable if left alone for more than a minute or two. Fast forward a few days later, we went over to my mother-in-law's house for brunch. The social worker believes we have a good chance of legally adopting the baby. When we discussed this, my mother-in-law told my husband that we better stop coddling the baby so much. Otherwise, we would have a spoiled child on our hands. Annoyed, I told her that I was not going to let a baby cry it out, especially one we are trying to form a positive bond with. My mother-in-law was miffed but said nothing. Later that night, my husband said his mom made a good point. I yelled, feeling bad because it unsettled the baby and took a while to calm her down. I asked him how he would feel if he was locked in a room for hours with no food, no water, and no one tending to his needs, and no matter how much he begged and cried, he was ignored. I told him that the developmental pediatrician said she is making progress with forming a bond and learning to trust again, and that we need to keep being patient. He apologized for upsetting me, but now I feel like I might have overreacted by yelling at him when he was just trying to discuss it with me. I just want what is best for our foster daughter, regardless of whether she returns to her family, goes to a new family, or stays with ours. Am I the asshole? You are not in the wrong here. You cannot spoil a baby, especially one dealing with significant trauma and neglect. This baby obviously has attachment issues and needs extra love and care to form a healthy bond. Be firm but calm with your mother-in-law. Please don't comment on my parenting. We're following doctor's orders. I'm walking away. Your husband needs to tell her to butt out once and for all. Am I the jerk for telling my spouse that their family needs to get a hotel next time they visit because of their kids? My wife, who is 36 years old, and I, who am 35 years old, have been married for 7 years and have a 5-year-old son. My wife has 4 siblings, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Her brothers live far away, and she isn't very close to them. Both of her sisters live within 2 hours of us, and the 3 of them are very close. Both of her sisters have 2 children. Her youngest sister, Jen, who is 25 years old, has a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Jen, her husband, and their children came to visit us this past weekend for Memorial Day. We have 3 bedrooms in our house, our master bedroom, our son's room, and a smaller guest room. My wife decided on her own that we would let Jen and her family have our bedroom. Apparently, Jen's children are not the best sleepers at home, and if they are in an unfamiliar place, it's even worse. So my wife offered Jen our room so all of them could be in one room, and my wife and I would sleep in the guest room. It turns out that by bad sleepers, Jen meant that her children wake up multiple times a night and then wake up for good at 5 a.m. every single day. I don't know about anyone else, but the last thing I want to do on a weekend is be woken up by a screaming baby at 5 a.m. 3 days in a row. It wasn't just the crying baby, but the fact that Jen and her husband would also be running around getting whatever the baby needed. The commotion woke our son up, who then woke my wife and me up. Every day at 5 a.m. I spent the entire weekend tired and cranky. To make things worse, Jen and her husband would take naps together whenever one of their children was napping, which left my wife and me to watch their non-napping child. I complained to my wife about being tired, and she told me that her sister and brother-in-law need the rest more than we do because this is their life every day, so we should help them get at least a little bit of a break. But by the time Jen and her family left on Monday, all I wanted to do was sleep, which I did immediately after they left. My wife got upset with me for napping because our son was also tired and cranky and was fighting her on everything. She woke me up so that she could take a break. I later told her that next time her sister wants to come visit, they need to get a hotel because their children's sleeping habits are clearly disruptive to our entire family. She told me that she isn't going to tell her sister to fork out hundreds for a hotel room when we have the space for them in our house. She also said that Jen's children will become better sleepers as they get older. I told her that every decision she is making prioritizes her sister over me and our son, and she got defensive and told me I'm being a jerk. Maybe I'm far enough removed from the baby stage that I blocked it out, but I don't remember ever being so disruptive to anyone when we were guests in their house. They are supposed to come visit us again for the 4th of July, and I'm already dreading it. You are not in the wrong here. If they live less than 2 hours away, they don't really need to be staying multiple nights so often. Tell your wife that either her family can get a hotel, or you'll get a hotel room for you and the kiddo, because you all deserve sleep too. So your wife made all these decisions without your input, and then wanted you and your son to take the brunt of exhaustion on top of it? No, thank you. Am I the jerk for telling my partner to accept the compromise we agreed on for our child's name, or figure out a better compromise? My husband and I are expecting a baby. We don't know the sex, but I could give birth at any time now. We have a boy and a girl name chosen. The choices generally are compromises. We didn't agree on names really and had different beliefs around names. He believes in formal names and kids having really solid middle names as well. I believe in naming the child what you want to call them. This is something I got from my parents who named me and my siblings that way, and my siblings went on to do the same. For example, I am Lainey. Just Lainey. I don't have a more formal version of my name. I never felt like I needed a more formal name. My name works for me as a 34-year-old woman, just as much as it did when I was 4 years old. This led to some trouble for us because I gravitate more to names my husband considers nicknames. I found his choices very stuffy and unappealing, and he found mine juvenile. But he liked Theodora and I liked Thea. We agreed eventually to the full name for him, but I'd always use Thea. For a boy, we went with Declan for him and Dex for me. Again, he will use Declan and I will use Dex, but my husband doesn't like that I only say Thea or Dex. It bothers him that the full name gets ignored. He said he believes my family and a lot of our friends will use the names I do. I told him the compromise only worked on the grounds that it was okay, that he could use the full name and I could use the nickname. He said the full name seems like it will be ignored otherwise, and I should use both to make it more fair. I told him that's just him getting his way. I told him if he wants a better compromise, then he better come back to the table willing to look at different names. Before, names like Bryn, Lyra, Piper, and Freya were ruled out by him for not meeting his standards of formal. He said they were nickname-like. But shorter, more formal names feel like the only other possible compromise for us, and he doesn't agree. So I told him he needs to accept what we already compromised on, or we find a better compromise, which doesn't mean him getting his way. He told me I'm very dismissive of his concerns. I told him I was already going with a legal name I didn't care for under our compromise, so he should be more willing to work with me if he wants to change the names. Am I the asshole? It sounds like a perfect compromise was proposed, but he's still unhappy. The reality is that nicknames will always be there, and it's unreasonable to expect otherwise. Plus, respecting the version of the name the child chooses when they are older is important. You are not in the wrong here. It doesn't make sense that he won't avoid nicknames anyway. Am I the jerk for telling my partner their plans are unrealistic? My girlfriend is here on a student visa from another country. We love each other, but we have been having arguments about her wanting to transfer schools. I have moved here to be close to her since I was driving 2 hours every weekend. She has a full-ride scholarship and a teaching assistant position here, but she hates the town and does not like the school. She says she wants her art to be seen and that this is not the place for it. Some of her professors have been salty with her because she has expressed her desire to transfer for that reason. She has been so focused on this that she failed a class last semester. She thinks that she can do better. She applied to a school in New York, was accepted but does not have funding, an opportunity for a teaching assistant, or a job on campus. She still desperately wants to go and is still trying by contacting the offices repeatedly about scholarships, even though they said no. She asked her father for $16,000, and he will not give it to her, which made her really upset. She is also upset that her friend in New York has an internship and says that it is because she is in New York. I helped her by making phone calls, sending emails about scholarships, and doing the research, which all came back negative to me. I have told her that we should maybe wait, save some money, and go in the future, but she is convinced that it is the key to her success. She is now trying to get a loan outside of FAFSA that will be extremely expensive and assumes she can get a co-signer, her cousin. Her father also agrees with what I have said, more or less sharing the same opinion. She is also mad at him. She thinks that me saying that rent is expensive, having a car makes no sense, and that we should stay here for a while means I do not support her, that we are stuck here, and that it worries her. She thinks that I am going to restrict her. She will not let it go and has told me that she wants to keep pursuing the idea, continue contacting them, and even show up unannounced. I told her I would drive her, but it is a 10-hour drive one way. Am I the asshole for saying her plans are unrealistic since New York is expensive to live in, and she has nothing lined up other than the idea? Am I truly not supporting my partner? You took actions that facilitated her dreams and offered a plan to get there in the future when those didn't pan out. These considerations you've shared aren't restrictions, just practical thoughts. It's not wrong to have your own views while supporting someone in your own way. In the end, she has to decide for herself, and you have to decide if you admire her determination or if the financial risks are too much. Am I the jerk for asking my dad's spouse why she expected to walk me down the aisle when she's not my mom? My mom died when I was in kindergarten, and my dad didn't remarry until I, a 26-year-old male, was 22. He didn't date while my siblings and I were kids. His wife is fine. She's not my favorite person, and I find her a little off when it comes to her relationship with me and my siblings. They feel the same. She gives the vibe that she expected to be accepted as our motherly figure instead of as our dad's partner. We're close to dad. He has never given us the same vibe. He'll still hang out with us individually without his wife or each other around, but she definitely gives that vibe. It's weird to me because we were all adults, and I'm the youngest of the family, so my siblings were even older when she married our dad. To think she would fill any kind of mom role in my mind is weird. My dad loves her though, and he's happy, and she's nice enough other than this, so we don't rock the boat. However, this is now a situation where I did start to rock the boat, and I wonder if I'm the asshole for that. My fiancée Ellie and I are getting married, and we decided we both wanted to walk down the aisle. She wanted to walk with her parents, so I thought it'd be cool to ask my dad. He said yes. He got really emotional about it. He said he wished my mom could be here to walk with us, and I do too, so much. My dad's wife later approached me and told me she would gladly walk me down the aisle instead, and wanted me to know that I didn't need to ask my dad. I asked her what she meant, and she assumed I wanted her but was afraid to ask. I told her that wasn't what I wanted at all. She told me that was unexpected, and when she heard I had asked dad, she expected I would want her instead. So I asked her why she expected to walk me down the aisle when she is not my mom. She looked offended and told me I didn't need to be so tactless about it. I told her I was genuinely asking and couldn't understand. She then said she clearly misunderstood the relationship she has with me and my siblings, and I can keep my thoughtless questions to myself. My dad was confused by her reaction too. I told him what happened, and he had no idea. She is really pissed off. So, am I the asshole? In my opinion, you have done nothing wrong here. She randomly approached you to discuss it and had the wrong idea from the start, assuming you wanted her to walk you instead of your dad. It's very bizarre that she expects to be treated like a parental figure when she joined your family after you were already an adult. Instead of avoiding the subject, it might be best to have a clear conversation with your dad and siblings about your feelings. There's no reason why you can't all have a good family relationship without someone assuming a specific role. Am I the jerk for avoiding being mad at my in-laws? My husband and I have been trying to get pregnant for 1.5 years. We went to the doctor to see if something was wrong. Long story short, I can get pregnant, but because my DNA is melted together, I have a high risk of having miscarriages or conceiving a child with a disorder. Earlier this year, I got pregnant. We were scared that the pregnancy might go wrong. We waited 8 weeks to tell our families the good news. We explicitly told them to keep the news to themselves because we were not 100% sure if everything was okay. My mother-in-law told her sister that I am pregnant. The aunt messaged me directly to congratulate me. A week after that, we were going to have dinner at my mother-in-law's house. My husband's niece showed up before we arrived. Apparently, my mother-in-law had told her that I am pregnant. I heard about the slip-up from my sister-in-law. Both times, we were angry at her for not respecting our wishes because it is a stressful period for us. We still didn't know if the baby was okay this early in the pregnancy. After the 13 weeks, we were ready to tell our friends. I met up with a friend of mine for lunch to tell her the news, but she told me that my mother-in-law had told her mother that I was pregnant. At this point, I was fed up because it was the 3rd time she slipped up. My close friends were planning the baby shower. We planned showers for each other, so that's not a surprise. I only commented on my wishes in general, and the rest was up to them. I didn't want to know the location or date, but my mother-in-law told me. My sister-in-law is also pregnant. When she expressed the wish not to tell anyone about her pregnancy, my mother-in-law did not tell a soul. When my husband and I expressed such wishes, they were ignored. My sister-in-law gave birth a couple of days ago, and my due date is August 8th. My in-laws are planning to go on vacation for 4 weeks after my baby shower on June 29th. There is a chance that they might miss the birth of our baby. I have a feeling that they show more love towards their other grandchildren, and that they respect their daughter more than my husband. My husband has never expressed that he is sad or disappointed in any way. When I bring it up, he says, "They are grown-ups. I cannot force them to stay or postpone their vacation." He asked them to postpone their vacation by a couple of weeks so that they wouldn't miss the birth of our baby, but they said they already planned the trip and didn't want to go later. They also said they would be back before my due date. My parents will not go on vacation and declined a wedding invitation so that they would not miss the birth of our baby. My parents also said that they want to help us by cleaning the house and cooking. We really appreciate that. I now avoid going to my in-laws because they are clearly busy with their grandchildren and planning a vacation. I don't care anymore, but I don't want my child to feel left out in the future. Am I the asshole? Your mother-in-law is definitely the jerk for blabbing when you specifically asked her not to, and it makes sense to be upset about it. At least now you know she can't be trusted with sensitive information. However, expecting your in-laws to put their lives on hold because you might give birth is a bit much, and your husband is right about that. Also, it's a stretch to assume your kid will be left out without any solid evidence. Don't let comparisons ruin things. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.